Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Painless Universal Conversation with myself and Welsh. Today we're talking about how do we find our true calling, our true meaning of life. How do we live a life of purpose with limited desire for things and still understand our true relationship? What is it, our true calling? My guest, Sandy Vo, will be talking to us about this. Who is Sandy? Sandy is a visionary meditation teacher and a modern day yoga teacher. She was the founder of the Prosperous podcast, creator of the signature online program, Prosperous School of Self Realization. She's an expert in mind, body, and spiritual connection. She's helped leaders to discover true freedom by redesigning their unconscious mind that drives habits, break generation patterns, and behavior. Our mission today in our conversation is to understand modern ways of living by introducing enhanced functionality through simple, self-sufficient practices. By the end of this discussion, we want so many people to be able to tap into their own spiritual being. Because Sandy uses simple insights such as the mind, body, and spirit wellness to assess and understand your mind and your body and your soul. For her, this reality came after severe burnout, depression, and anxiety. She decided to listen to her own soul and find her joy, overcome her deep pain to find her own joy. Meet Sandy Vo as we share such an inspirational conversation, and I hope by listening, you find your own true meaning of your own purpose here on this earth. Meet Sandy. Well, hello everyone again, and welcome to Painless Universal, a conversation with myself and Welsh. As I said in my intro, today's conversation is really one I will inspire you to take your time to listen to it because you will find joys in different ways you never expected it before. You have a deep understanding of the meaning of this world and how to connect your pain to purpose. Your story is truly inspiring. It's one of lots of pain, but you didn't let that pain define you. You decide to find your way and your joy in through your pain. But before we get into all of that, can you just tell us a little bit in simple words, who is Sandy?
Yeah, well, I would say Sandy is a human being, just like anyone that is listening to this. She's got her great days, she's got her tough days, and I think what makes me a little different is a devotion that I have to this work, to actually allowing the sitting in the pain to actually teach the lessons that are meant to be coming through. And so I'm a meditation teacher. I work with people from all around the globe, and I teach tools to help people redefine their human experience by harmonizing with the five elements: earth, water, fire, space, air. So I can go into this a little bit more, but it's really just a way of showing people that no matter where you're at in your life right now, no matter how chaotic it feels, I promise you that that energy that is sitting inside of you, that feels heavy, that feels painful, it's all there to be transformed into something greater. And that's why you have so much of it. So it's really teaching people how to live in harmony with that and reconnect back to peace.
Your journey, this whole connecting and helping people did not always start that way. Something in you ignited that. You said, what was it like for you as a teen growing up? Because you said, I was unconsciously searching for the outside world, for anything that would captivate me out of this dark world of depression, anxiety, and sexual abuse. So as a teen, what was it like for you growing up?
Yeah, I would say that I had a really happy childhood, but it was during my teen years when I was around 14 years old was when my father left. And it was completely out of nowhere, at least to me it was. I saw that my parents got to a place where their relationship wasn't thriving anymore. My mom was a gambaholic. And there's a deeper story with that. And my dad was, constantly trying to save money, do investment properties. He was a really great entrepreneur. He was named Wall Street Businessman of the Year. And so he was really trying to get us on this path, but then my mom almost resisted it. And over time, he got to a place where he was like, I couldn't deal with this anymore. So he ended up just leaving, which was, completely a shockful to me, because we've always had a really great relationship. And a lot of my core values that were taught to me in life, my dad taught me. So he completely went against his own word and just left. And so that's painful, to be so close to a parent and to feel like not only do you have this father-daughter relationship, but you also feel like there's a deeper connection than that, and for him to just get up and leave. And so that happened when I was 14, 15, and that was the spark of really challenging times for me. I ended up going over to where my dad was, which was across the country, and we were begging for him to come back. And it got to the point where, my parents were still trying to work it out, and it didn't work out anymore. So I got my siblings and I said, I'm taking the kids, my younger siblings, and I'm going to move to Florida, and I'm going to stay there until you all figure your stuff out. And so I became this big sister to being this mom and this dad to two younger siblings, and it completely shifted our dynamic. And we were no longer best friends. It was like, now I'm your mom. And then I got pushback from, my younger siblings. So I share this story because I know that, especially if you are a daughter to immigrants or a son to immigrants, there's a lot of this within our lineage. And there's so many generational patterns that we are here to break, especially if you feel like you had to grow up too fast, too soon. So that was my teenage years. It felt like I had to grow up too fast, too soon. I had to mature a lot faster. I had to dig deep to try to understand what this life is a lot faster than to just be able to enjoy, my childhood. So that's my teen years. And I think it was the beginning of a deep depression that I didn't even know that I had.
Yeah, because that leads me on to this question. You said you were addicted to pain and suffering. Eventually came to a head when I completely burnt out. And I was like, oh, why could you burn out? What happened? You were burnt out of your mind, your body, and your spirit. Everything was just totally shut down. I thought the only way to escape was to take my own life. And I felt really, wow, that you were that in that low place that you only thought to yourself the only way out was to take your own life. Why did you have those thoughts during these times?
Yeah, I think when you're on this journey of trying to understand this question of, well, who am I? What am I here to do? What is my life's purpose? We all get to this one part of our life where that question is the prominent question, because everything just doesn't make sense and you feel more disconnected from the world around you. And so for me, that was in my early years in college where I really started to ask that question. And I noticed I gained a ton of weight. I felt a lot more just disconnected from people. I was this very vibrant person that suddenly didn't feel vibrant anymore. I smiled just to smile, not because I actually felt joy inside. And I think a lot of people can listen to this and relate to that, where it's almost like this forced confidence or this forced projection of happiness when it's not really how we actually feel on the inside. So when I started noticing that my outer world was so far removed from my inner world, and it felt like there was so much friction and push and pull, that's when I was like, wow, I just feel so confused. I started doing more things to stay busy. So I juggled multiple jobs. I took on multiple activities. I would, go out just to get drunk and forget about everything that's going on in my mind. And I would just keep my mind and body and spirit as full as possible. I started competing in bodybuilding. I did all these things to keep so busy that eventually it all came to a halting crash. And so when I got the nicer body and when I, achieved high goals in college, and I did all these great things. I started my own business. I did all these great things and I still didn't feel happy. I was like, okay, then maybe the only answer left is to walk away from this earth. Like maybe there's nothing here for me. And when I started to think that way, that's when I knew that I really needed help, right? Because this isn't normal. This isn't how I should be thinking about my life. But it was really those thoughts that guided me to see that it, it's not even about being normal. It's about asking the deeper, it's about letting life guide you in a way that you begin to ask the questions that you wouldn't have asked if you were comfortable and if everything was good, right? If everything was great.
Sometimes we forget that when things are so perfect, going well, we forget to ask those deep questions, because this leads on to this the luxury of this pain led me to hear the beacon of the divine. Okay. So you were going through all this where you even have a negative thought about what is your purpose on this earth. Then you started having deeper thoughts about what is the luxury? I'm not even so sure why you even use that. I'm like the luxury of the pain. And you say, sweet child, you are here for a greater purpose. In order to realize this greater purpose, my attachment to the ego identity had to die. I'm like, it's true. Sometimes we forget that you are actually here for a greater purpose, but something has to remind you. So when you were going through those negative thoughts and that happened, when did you realize that this ego in you had to die? This self-identity of what you presume the world of pity, of pain, of all this that's happened to you, which everyone goes through. When did you realize enough is enough? I need to take action and do something. This sweet child needs to, you're here for a purpose, let me utilize that skill.
Yeah, well, it was actually the time when I tried to take my own life. I heard this voice that said to take your own life, but it wasn't in that sense. It was like, take your last breath. And so I tried to, but then I experienced this. It was almost like tuning into this black hole. Everything completely got quiet. I felt my whole body vibrating. I opened my eyes and I thought I was gone. I left this earth. I looked around me and I realized I'm still here. And then that's when that voice came through. And I felt it was the voice of God. It was that subtle voice that said, sweet child, it wasn't to take your last breath and completely you leave this human body. It was to kill the ego. So death, we're all going through death. Life and death is happening simultaneously all the time. And so in that moment, it was about killing the ego and the identity that I attached to myself that was against my own nature. See, like so many of us, we're living in a way, especially if you feel there's a lot of resistance or pain or anger or sadness inside of you. It's a clear sign that we're living against our own nature. When the wind is blowing in different directions, it doesn't look up and it asks, well, why am I blowing in a different direction? When the tree branches are flowing back and forth, it doesn't say, why am I flowing in this direction versus that direction? It moves with the way that nature moves, right? And it's the same sense as if we were to try to swim upwards on a river current, we're going to feel that sense of pushback and we're going to drown if we try that. So it's really about learning how to retune back into nature. And that's what I started to do. When you kill the ego, when you kill the parts of your identity, which for me was, okay, you're the daughter of an immigrant, you need to get great grades, you need to work in a high, Fortune 500 company job, you need to make lots of money, you need to, be with high level people all the time, whatever that is. I killed those parts of my ego because it no longer served the purpose of who I'm here and what I'm meant to do and what I'm meant to be. And I think on this path, everyone goes on that journey many, many times before they actually die.
Hmm. What led you on the path of the meditation and becoming a spiritual teacher?
Yeah. So it was asking that question of who am I? And I always you always go into a deeper and deeper journey. And it was at that one point where I completely surrendered And I thought, and I killed the ego. And then after that, I was introduced to my meditation teacher. And there were a series of events that happened that led me there. And so my meditation teacher ended up happening to be someone that was only 45 minutes away from where I lived. And he's a pioneer in the mind body spirit world and reconnecting the mind body and the spirit. And he studied from a teacher that is from India. And he came from India and came to the United States in order to show scientists that you can actually monitor your own heart rate. You can actually change your heart rate, your temperature, your pressure. You can do all of that from the inside. And they would put EKGs on him and they would measure him. His name is Swami Rama of the Himalayas. And so they did this and they were able to see, wait a second, these yogis that are from India, that there's some validity to this. Like science is showing that you can actually control your internal states with your mind. And so through this connection with my teacher, I started to dive deeper into meditation. And I, spent 1 year, no social media, wasn't on technology, didn't watch TV. I just immersed myself into this because I had that one glimpse in that meditation practice of what it felt like to feel peace for the first time in my life. It was like this feeling of a cozy womb, like you're sitting in your mother's womb, right? And you feel so safe and so supported. It was that feeling that I got from meditation, except it didn't come from my mom. It didn't come from a boyfriend. It didn't come from a friend. It didn't come from validation in the outside world. There was something within me that evolved for me to be able to feel that, and it wrapped up around me. And this was through that meditation practice. So just having that one glimpse was enough for me to desire more. And it was through that desire that led me on this path now. And I remember the first time that I practiced it, I knew that there was something more. And within 1 month, I was like, this is meant to be my life. I'm meant to teach this. And so I started to work with students at universities afterwards. I did workshops. I started to tour around New York State, and I would teach more college students because I wish that I knew this when I was in college. So,
And we forget that sometimes we just wish that someone out there who's been through that experience that we're going through at the moment, someone could just magically appear and say, look, sweet child, this is not your time. And I think this is why I'm so glad I'm talking to you, because you've been through it and you now know how to get us to find our inner peace, inner joy that is hidden in us. And there's one thing I saw on your website which really inspired me. Like, you talk about how one can believe that they have everything inside of them to feel express the kind of life they want to live. Because a lot of times we're not quite sure what it is. What is it that we want to do? Our parents have said, this is the direction we want you to go. The society has said, this is the direction you want to go. But in your mind of mind, you know that this is not for you. These areas, the society, your parents, everyone has told you that this is where you need to do. It's not for you. How can one believe and know that this is a direction that they should be and find peace doing that?
yeah, it takes a few layers of unraveling, right? So the way that I like to describe it is, imagine if you're a light bulb, right? And you have lampshades around you. So there's lampshades around this light bulb. Let's say there's about 30 lampshades around this light bulb. If you and I were sitting in a dark room and the sky was dark, you have no idea that there's actually light in that room. But if you started to remove the lampshade one by one by one, each lampshade representing an old habit pattern, representing an identity or a belief that belonged to your parents, that belonged to their parents, representing the mainstream thoughts about society and culture that you were adopting to be true for yourself, if you keep unraveling and removing each one of those lampshades, eventually the room that you're in is going to become lighter and lighter and lighter. And if you remove that last lampshade, you're going to realize that you are that light, that peace does live within you. And so our work as human beings is really in the undoing, so that we can immerse ourselves into the beingness of who we are. And so what does that undoing look like? It's looking at, well, these things that I tell myself that I should do. Just pay attention to your own mind for a moment. Pay attention to every day when you wake up, what is your mind saying first thing in the morning? What's that to-do list? What are the things that you're saying that you should do? And look at it and feel each one of those things. Does it actually feel true to you? Does it resonate with you? And if it doesn't, then it's asking you to dig a little deeper and see, where actually is this coming from? Is it actually mine, or does it belong to somebody else? And learn to let it go, right? It's a whole process of undoing.
Okay. I have to ask you this one. One of humans' biggest problem, because I think we're all human beings rather than being man, woman, but humans in general, one of our biggest problem is learning to bridge the gap between the outer world. I think I saw this and I said, I have to ask it because this is going to be a big problem after the pandemic has happened. So many people are struggling. Some people lost their jobs. So one of the biggest problem is being able to bridge the gap between the outer worldly success, which is money, relationship, material wealth, and the inner fulfillment, which is spiritual growth and consciousness, intuition. How do you help us live in unity with both? Because we still need both somehow. We need to be in a relationship, we need to, but at the same time, we need to find our own inner peace. How do you help us deal with both?
Yeah, this is such a great question. And I saw a car pull up, and there's about 3 dogs in this house. So if you hear any barking, I'm going to let you know in advance. This is such a great question, though, because I think, for me, I thought that the only representation of peace that I could find in the world were monks that were living in caves
Yes.
in the Himalayan mountains. And so when I started to learn about meditation, I was like, oh, that's not for me. It's for monks that are living in these caves. But I realized that you can be a householder, a business owner, someone who pays the bills, and attain a high level of inner peace at the same time. And it starts by connecting your outer world of thoughts, words, and actions that you take in the world with your own inner wisdom. So your inner wisdom is the part within you that is so innate within you that it's undeniable. But every day we resist it and we go against it. You know what you need to do. Oftentimes we know what we desire, we know what we want, but we're just so afraid of it. We're so afraid of actually taking that next step forward because we don't know what it fully looks like, that we stay stuck and we allow all this energy to become suppressed in our bodies. And what I say is that energy that is not expressed is suppressed. And when it becomes suppressed, it becomes depressed. And so in creating the bridge between the outer world and the inner world, ask yourself, what is your true purpose here? If you were to go back and go inside of your own heart and not think about what other people told you, like, what is that one small thing? It doesn't have to be anything grandiose. Is your purpose just to love? Is it just to be happy? Is it to exude joy everywhere you go? It can be something really simple. And when you find that, align every thought that you think, every word that you speak, every action that you take with that purpose, and you become embodied. When you become embodied, you are now living a life that is in union. So when we hear the word yoga, yoga really stands for union. It's a Sanskrit word for union. So it's a union between your outer world and the inner world. And if you go into, certain sayings in different religions, like in the Christianity religion, Jesus says, I and my Father are one, right? So it's the very same thing with us. I and the universe, I and the Father, I and the divine mother, whatever you want to relate to, are one. And you're living in union in that way. So when you take the thoughts and the words and the actions and you continue to unite it every single moment of the day, it's a 24/7 game. It's not just when you're closing your eyes and sitting in a quiet corner with some plants around you meditating, then you'll be able to experience that sense of inner peace. You're not going to live in so much friction anymore because now you are tuning into nature and you're not working against it anymore.
So we don't have to be living a monk life to actually find that inner peace, right?
No,
Sandy?
no,
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 we can
you
still,
don't.
yeah, we can still find that inner peace by. Does it have to be in a quiet environment when we do these things? And how would you suggest? What are your typical tips for someone who's saying searching for that inner peace? You know, after everything that's gone on in the pandemic time, people are seriously searching. What are your typical tips for anyone who's out there looking for their inner peace to find it?
Yeah, I was actually on the phone with my bank, and one of the guys was asking me about. We were talking about this transaction, and it was from my Royal Globe retreat. It was a retreat that I was hosting, and he goes, "Oh, is that meditation?" And I said, "Yes." And he was like, "Well, I'm stuck in Canada right now, and they're still at that time. It was like a few weeks ago. They're still on a lockdown." And he was saying, "I've been researching meditation because I know that it's something that I need right now since I'm spending so much time alone." So if you are like this gentleman that I was talking to, I want you to know that it's fully accessible, and that if you are in a position where you are home by yourself and there's nothing else you have but yourself, use it as an opportunity to discover yourself and to know yourself. And you can start by, yes, being in a quiet environment and allowing yourself to take a few moments to breathe, move the body. There's steps that you take before you actually get into the meditation practice. I think what people feel discouraged about is they jump right into meditation. They go into their room, they sit down, they close their eyes, and then they're meditating. But then what's going to happen is you're going to hear all these thoughts, and you're going to have a lot of resistance along the way because you're not taking the time to actually prep your body. So what I would share with you is to take the time to move your body, tune into it, understand it, just by doing some simple stretches, asking yourself, well, where does my body feel tense? Where does it hurt? You know, and then just taking the time to stretch wherever you feel it. And then after you do that, you start tuning into your breath. Your breath is the guide and the connector between your mind, your body, and your spirit. So notice how when you take one deep breath,
Actually, yeah. Yes, I feel it goes everywhere. Yes. I did
yeah,
think about that way. Actually, that's true. Okay, so
yeah.
the breath connects everything, and so that's a way to calm yourself, sit in a room, play calm music, the typical yoga relaxation music, and just sit and process there. And that's very true. I like that. Thank you. Our
Yep.
final question, Sandy, I really have to ask you this. For anyone looking for practical tools, right, to ease feeling overwhelmed, especially we've been feeling overwhelmed, so much to do with today's world. There's just so much going on. We've got mothers want to be perfect, fathers want to be perfect. Everyone feels the need with social media as well, that need to be perfect, and that creates overwhelm. So they could overcome and transform the energies of stress. How do you and stress and fear? How do you teach people that yes, you're feeling overwhelmed by your own life circumstances or things you've put on your plate? How do you help them to strategize and navigate a peaceful path?
Yeah, it's, you know, people think that they have to change a lot in order to get started on this path, and they think they have to step away from a lot. But really, it's in the subtle steps and it's in the subtle moments. It's a moment to moment action that you're experiencing. Yoga, meditation is 24/7. It's not just what we talked about when we talked about sitting in a quiet room. It's happening right now as you are giving me your full attention and I am giving you my full attention. We are one with each other in this moment, right? And the people tuning into this, it happens when you go for a walk outside and you're tuning into nature. Sometimes people walk away from nature and they're like, oh, I just feel so recharged, right?
Yeah.
And they feel recharged because there's an energetic battery that the earth carries that emits into our bodies when we actually take the time to go outside. And so if you are feeling overwhelmed and you have a lot going on in your life, especially if you are a type A person, you love having projects, you love having a long to-do list, you even turned your self-care practice into a to-do list. If that's the case for you, then the way that I would invite you to start is, it's first in your mind. It's asking yourself, well, what are my core values? what is important to you? Because trust me, you're not going to want to do these things if you can't find why it's important to you. Like, so when you really tune into your core values, what comes up for you? I know for me, my core value is this inner peace, like you talk about. My core value is having solitude time, because I know that's when I feel the most connected. My core value is joy, and it's being able to create a life that is sustained by all of these core values. And so when you think about your core value, that is your foundation, that is your why, that's what you're constantly going to go back to. It's like your North Star. So when you look at your core values and you look at your life, now notice, do they line up? Right? Or is there friction in the relationship area? Or is there friction in the work area? Is there friction in the friendship area? And if that's the case, now it's going to invite you to take more action. And sometimes people think this has to look super dramatic, but it starts with a simple conversation. Are you having the tough conversations that you need to have in your life so that you can experience your actual core value? So you might say that your core value is peace, but the moment that, negative Nancy gives you a phone call, you entertain that phone call and you are there every single time, but then you complain about it and you're not even being present because you're just like, yes, and you're not actually present with her, right? So now you're a disservice to her and to yourself. Maybe you say your core value is joy, but at the same time, maybe you're listening to music that doesn't emit any type of joy, and it's curse words, it's drugs, it's all the things that maybe go against what feels actually good in your soul. So it's really about taking your core values, which I would say is part of your inner wisdom, and now looking at the outer world, right, and seeing, do these line up? And if they don't, then it's going to invite you into some different spaces to be able to do that work. And that's why the meditation that I teach is a body of wisdom called Shanta Royale meditation. And what it does is it helps people to tune back into their nature through these 5 elements that I talked about, because we are earth, water, air, space, and fire, right? Tuning back into these 5 elements so that we can experience this joy. And sometimes it's as simple as doing some breath work, understanding your body, and also having these conversations. And it feels hard to begin with, but what you feel in your life when you actually have these conversations and the healing that happens within your family, what I've been able to witness has just been incredible. And I've seen these transformations happen from one person, but ripple out into the entire family. And they're breaking these generational patterns together and not apart.
In saying that, before I let you go, Sandy, anyone who wants to reach out to you, because I mean, you have a very special gift here. This is something you learned from your own childhood, from your own life. And this, you've translated this special gift into helping others. Anyone who's looking out there to reach you, so you could help them in finding their own spiritual purpose on this earth, how can they reach you?
Yeah, my favorite place to share a lot of this wisdom is on my podcast. It's called Prosperous, the podcast. They're short 15, 25-minute clips, and it just anchors you right into your soul. It speaks to you right there. And it just reminds you to slow down and to remember these parts of yourself and to feel okay. People think that spirituality has to be about, I'm living in la la land and everything is great and I'm happy all the time. But no, there is beauty in the pain. There's beauty in the sadness. And so Prosperous really helps you to find the luxury in that pain so that you can turn it into something greater. So Prosperous. And also I am now starting my YouTube too. So I'm slowly growing that. And then on Instagram, my Instagram is iSandyVo. And my website, of course, you can find everything on there.
I think the website was fantastic because it gives everything, and then you read your blog, you see the podcast as well. So I would suggest anyone who's looking to look out for you or understand your work should just go there. And I think by reading 1 or 2 things you do, that person, just by reading them, will find something of peace. Thank you so much, Sandy, for joining me. I really enjoyed that conversation, and I would feel lots of peace this evening because I think just having this chat with you, for me personally, gave me this opportunity to reflect and see things in a different way. And also the way as I deal with my own pain. I think this is such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne, for having me and for all of the incredible questions that you asked too. And and just for enjoying this energy exchange. It's very beautiful. And I love the work that you're doing and the kinds of people that you interview, the questions that you ask. I think it's going to help the world to find that part within themselves that they've been discovering for a long time. So thank you.
Thank you so much.